Question 1. Explain the difference between anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the study of the parts of the body, where they're located, and also the parts of the different organs in the body. Physiology is the study of how organs work and how all of the organ systems work together in the body. Homeostatic regulation is how the body maintains a stable internal environment. The body can do this in several different ways. It can do it by what we call negative feedback or positive feedback. In negative feedback, the body attempts to eliminate a stimulus. In positive feedback, the body attempts to continue a stimulus. Both of these, however, cause a needed response inside of the body. Disease is when homeostasis is not maintained or the internal environment is not within normal limits. So if we think back to our lab we did on exercising, let's think about the receptor, control, center, effectors, and response as we exercise. So as we exercise, the need for oxygen increases. So let's just think here about what's going on as you exercise. So when we're exercising, your muscles are using oxygen. As your muscles use oxygen, this is going to send a signal. So this is the receptor, a decrease in oxygen. This is going to send a signal to the brain, which would be the control center. The brain is then going to send out a signal to the effectors, which would be your heart and your lungs. And in turn, breathing rate and heart rate will increase. And so that would be your response. This is all going to increase the amount of oxygen that you now have in your blood. So as oxygen goes down, this is going to bring the oxygen content back up. So this is an example of negative feedback. As an object nears your eyes, you blink. So the stimulus is the object. You have nerves near your eyelashes. So this is the receptor. This sends a signal to the brain, which is the control. Your brain is going to say we need to blink or move. So this is going to send out signal to muscles, which would be the effector. The response would be that you blink. So that would be maintaining homeostasis so that you don't get an injury to your eye. Different planes. So there are 3 ways that we could dissect a kidney. In this case, you don't really need to be so much worried about what's inside the kidney as much as how the different planes give you a different view of what's going on inside of the body. So a kidney, if we draw it dissected along a frontal plane, kidneys outside of the body, or if you just took a kidney out of the body, it kind of is shaped like a kidney bean, and they're kind of reddish in color. If we were to slice this right down the frontal plane, it would be like opening it up like a book. So kind of opening the cover, and you'd have a front and a back portion. So if we were to draw this, it would look the same basic shape as what we had to begin with, but you would see the stuff on the inside of the kidney. So we would be able to see the internal structures of the kidney. Now, if we were to take your kidney and dissect it along a sagittal plane, that would be sort of like taking your kidney, flipping it towards us, like this, and then cutting it down this way. So in this case, your kidney is going to kind of look like a long, thin oval, and then you would just see some of the smaller structures in the middle. So it's going to look a little bit different. And in this case, you would have a left and a right side to your kidney. And the last one is a transverse plane. And in a transverse plane, you could cut your kidney along any of these top and bottom portions. And if you looked at it, you would have a long, thin portion, but it would kind of be the opposite direction of the sagittal. And you'd be able to see some of the little structures on the inside this way. So you'd have top and bottom. So those are the different planes and the different ways that you can dissect a specimen. Which body cavity provides the least protection? So if we think about the body cavities going from the top to the bottom, you have the cranial cavity, which has a lot of protection because it's protected by the skull. You have the spinal cavity. That has a lot of protection. It's protected by your backbone. We have in the front, and those both make up your dorsal body cavity, so that's not the answer to the question. They're both protected. In your ventral body cavity, you have the thoracic cavity. Well, that has the rib cage, so those organs are pretty well protected. Then you have the abdominal pelvic. And those organs, well, they pretty much lack protection. So they have the least amount of protection. The pelvic has the hips protecting it in the rear, so they have the pelvis, but the abdominal cavity really has no protection whatsoever. And to kind of tie into that question, the function of body cavities prevent organs from rubbing against each other. And from bumps and shock as you move around throughout the day. So they're kind of like membranes that protect all of your organs on the inside of the body. Medical technology. So what medical technology would be most appropriate if a doctor needed to examine the blood flow through a patient's heart, specifically checking the function of the valves that allow blood to pass into the different chambers? And valves are like doorways. So if a doctor wants to look at the blood flow, an X-ray is really not going to show the heart because it's a soft tissue. CAT scan, it's going to show the heart, but it isn't necessarily going to show the blood because that's a liquid. MRI is only going to show just a static picture. So in this case, an ultrasound is going to be the best choice, because it's going to give a live image or a video of what's going on inside the heart, and it's actually going to show how these things function rather than just a picture of how it works. A patient comes in complaining of severe pain after twisting their knee. The doctor suspects tendon and bone damage. In this case, an X-ray is only going to show the bone damage. So we're going to need to use either a CAT scan or MRI because we need to look at that soft tissue. So I would say the best case would be MRI because you don't even have to worry about the radiation here. But because you have soft tissue, the MRI is going to give you the best picture of what's going on in this case. which organs would we find in each of these body cavities? So in the thoracic body cavity, we're going to find the heart and the lungs and some blood vessels that go along with those. In the abdominal pelvic, you're going to find a lot of your digestive organs, like the stomach, the intestines, the liver. There are a lot of others, but those are some of the major ones. In the cephalic, you're going to find the brain. You'll find some of your spinal cord, some of the brain stem, which attaches to the spinal cord. And then compare and contrast positive and negative homeostasis. Well, we kind of talked about this in question number 2 back at the top, but remember, positive homeostasis, you're continuing a stimulus. In negative homeostasis, you're stopping a stimulus from occurring. They both have the 3 parts that we talked about as far as the receptor, control, and effector. They're both causing some kind of needed response in the body, so they're both necessary for maintaining a stable internal balance. They just work in different ways to maintain a balance. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful, and then please make sure you try the directional term and the web anatomy quiz tutorial.